Hello and welcome to video 2. I hope you've had a chance to reflect and think about video 1 and think about the world we live in and to think about how the rules are being rewritten and we are in this world where the pace of change is so fast that we actually can't keep up with it now, which is giving us different situations, different contexts in which we operate our projects and change and the way we run our organizations. Now, video 2 really is around, and I promise to share with you what we call a project lifecycle really, which is the end-to-end journey of a good project and change initiative. And I like to think about it as a journey rather than a process. And it's a hazardous journey, isn't it? You're taking a really great idea and you're taking it through a journey to embed it into your business that will actually give you some benefits that will actually help you take you nearer to your ambition. And I think it's really important to start the journey with that concept that anything we do within organizations or within teams or personally ourselves in work or outside of work really should be of huge value. So it's really important to think of the end in mind. Why are we actually doing this project and why are we actually making this change happen? And does it really align to what we're doing? Based on a concept that we're working in a world that's moving so fast. So we've got to be able to keep agile in the way we think about it and make sure that things evolve as we go through. So in that context then, what does a really good change process or a project process actually look like? We talked about on the last module about a key aspect around the fact that you can't separate the projects from the change. Remember that the project was a technical solution and the change piece around getting the business to really want, or our customers to really want that change. So we've got to make sure that we have a framework that pulls those two together and takes us on a journey in a very intuitive and very powerful way to get the benefits delivered in our business. So I always like to start off really with this concept of speeding up by slowing down. And I think the first part of a project really has to be an understanding stage, if you like. And what that's about is the fact that let's just stop and think about this idea and think about the input, if you like. And change comes from lots of different areas, and it comes from the fact that the competition might be doing something different. It might be a new business model we're implementing, a new product, a new way of operating. It might be some legal aspect. It might be an innovation idea that we have to improve our business. And those drivers, if you like, for change really start to get to think about the amount of ideas that we could be trying to implement in our business. And so we need to think about how we actually prioritize ideas. And I think it's a really good idea before we leap into implementation, as many organizations do. Here's a problem, let's do something about it. Let's just spend a bit of time really in the first stage called understanding. And you can see the journey on the wall behind me here. You can see that the journey we're going to go on in terms of what we recommend for Change Pro. And you can see there are 6 stages that we're going to go through. And you'll see the first stage, of course, is this understanding phase. And this stage really, the question, I like to lead Project Change with a series of questions. So this question that we're trying to answer at the first stage really, is the idea desirable? There's lots of things we could invest in, lots of things we could do, but is this idea desirable? Do we think it's going to add value to ourselves, our customers and society? And what we're doing is we're getting a group of people together to really discuss and mull over this idea and think about how does this idea or this piece of change fit to what we're trying to achieve? Once we've done that, of course, and the output of that tends to be some form of presentation, typically in organizations that would be at a board level or at whatever level the actual project change actually is at. And it's around a group of people getting together and deciding is it the right time? Have we got the right resources? Is it the right thing to actually do to invest in this idea? So we take this idea then and say, well, okay, it's a great idea, but I need to know more about it. So the second stage you can see really is around scoping. And this is about actually getting a group of people together and starting to really understand the idea. And the 2 questions we're asking here really is the idea feasible? I.e., do we have the resources, the time, the space, the technology to actually make this change happen? And finally, is it viable? Will it actually help us to save money, make money, and actually is a business case, if you like, around making this happen? So we've really answered a couple of questions there in the scoping phase and one in the understanding phase. So is the idea, is it desirable? Is it feasible? is it viable? Once those three things are met, then we can start to put some bones on the idea and start to scope it out and have a look at what resources we need, what manpower and people we need to deliver the project, what's the time frame, what's some of the risks, what's some of the costs involved. And we're actually putting together what we call a project brief, really, which is a one-page document that summarises the idea and the pros and cons, if you like, of actually doing it, and answers those three questions. Once we've done that, then we can we sort of look at it and think, well, what, this is a great idea. It ticks all the boxes. Let's go ahead and start to make it happen. And what I've done in ChangePro really is, and it's something that I see not happening an awful lot, is that I've actually put a distinct phase into the project around putting the team together. So this is the technical project team and the change team. They all come together and they spend time really building relationships and actually getting to know each other and actually putting together a team canvas, like a way of working, so they can actually look at their skill sets and make sure they're playing to position. But they really understand the purpose behind the project. They understand why they're doing it. They've got some trust together. They know what they actually need to deliver and how they're going to do it. And I think it's a really important phase to actually do that. So the output of that really is your team canvas, again, a one-pager. And then the next stage then really is to say, okay, well, now we've got the team together and we know each other, we've got some trust and we're open, we're honest, we're creative, we're willing to say what we think and feel, we fall out with each other, we challenge each other, there's good conflict, we can be vulnerable, we're quite happy with saying I don't know, all those sort of key things for our high performance team which are really important. Once we've got that in place, we've got a great team working, we can then start to move into what I call the crafting the approach stage. And this is when it starts getting really interesting, because we're taking the idea and we're now saying to ourselves, how do we best land this change in the business? So this is where the change team and the technical solution team come together, and we need to identify what type of approach we're going to take. Is it an agile approach? Is it going to be a waterfall technique? Are we going to use Prince2? Or actually is it a Quest project where we're trying to find the solution to a problem? So let's perhaps use human-centered design techniques, and we're mulling these over and thinking about it. And maybe it's a project where we're actually going to use a number of different approaches, where perhaps we start off with agile to find out really what the problem is, and then maybe we move into Quest to find the solution, and then when we get to implementation, we then move into perhaps Prince2 or a standardized project methodology to actually get stuff done and implement and roll out the solution within the business. And the whole time we're constantly reviewing and adapting as we go through. So this stage here really is putting together our best guess plan, and I'd like to put together what I call a one-page project canvas. And obviously there'll be more data behind the canvas, but I think it's a really good discipline to no matter how complex it is, to actually get your project onto a page. And the project needs to have the project technical solution path, but also the change piece. And I always like to look at the project plan and look at the concept of making sure that the business is ready for change. We're starting really early in the project life cycle in terms of the delivery stage to warm the business up to the idea, to start to build that awareness and desire. So they start to help the technical solution team to actually, when we start to get to embedding it in the business, it makes it a lot easier. So there's a whole thing there. So example is, if we're going to go through a big change process in our business, and it's going to be a massive structure, and there'll be lots of different roles and responsibilities, and it's a big shift, big shift in the organizational way of operating, then it probably makes sense early on in the project lifecycle, wanting to develop a set of change agents, a set of people who are really good at coaching to be able to, that when we start to go live and make these changes happen, that they are going to be, people are going to be supported, and we reduce the amount of resistance we get to the change. So all those sort of things need to be planned and thought through and put together on a project canvas. And again, we recommend a one page. In the ChangePro framework, all the documents and guides I've been talking about so far, they're all in the framework, and they're all there for you to adapt and change and make yours as you feel fit. So once we've now got the approach right, we've crafted the approach, the next stage then really is about, obviously, the important bit, which is around delivery. And again, I've called it stage delivery because I think it's really important to break your project down into chunks. I'm a big fan of stage plans, and I'm a big fan of planning as far as you can see. And I think it's really important to put the routines and the ways of operating, and often called the drumbeat, in place around, when do we actually get together and review backwards and preview forwards, and set the plan for the next stage. So depending on what situation we're in, depending on how often you do that and how close those review sessions actually are. If it's really foggy, then that might be even daily or even weekly or perhaps monthly, depending on how foggy it is. And those sort of things are really important. So, for example, if we're using an agile approach, we need to make sure that the customer, if you like, who's going to receive this change, are aware of how much time they have to put into the project when we do these review processes and these sprints and these reviews and the next iteration. So it's something to think about when we're starting to put that together. So the staging delivery aspect of it is when we get into the team delivering the project for you as a project leader. You're working with your key stakeholders, you're working with your sponsorship team, and making sure that they're happy, there's no surprises, making sure that you're given the information they need as they require, and also you're supporting and enabling the team to deliver the project for you. So that's where the whole concept of managing the project team, but also managing the project, managing deliverables, making sure the relationship's in place, making sure you're doing good stakeholder management, making sure you're doing good learning and reviewing, and making sure that the customers are involved as early as possible, and they want to get involved in it, and the change team's working really well, and all the great stuff that a really good project leader does, and not to fall in the trap of actually doing the project yourself and getting tied down in deliverables where you're actually there to actually make sure the project's done through your project team. And also the realization, of course, is that you're doing it on the behalf of your sponsor. So to make sure they're playing an active role in clearing any barriers and making sure that you are successful. So as we go through there, of course, we're constantly reviewing and updating the project canvas. And we are obviously looking at implementing the ideas into the organisation or the business, and we're looking to obviously make sure that those benefits are being delivered. And it's important that when we get to the end of the delivery stage, that we have a really good transition into business as usual, if you like, and if you can call that in these days. How do you make the new normal? So this is around how do you actually take the change that you've made and actually enable the business to take it on board and use that as their new ways of working. So you want the business to own that part and make sure that the sponsor's actually driving and making sure there's a good transition plan, but also there's a good benefits realization plan in place that are monitoring and looking at the fact that we set out with this project to make this change. The idea was to deliver these set of benefits and add value. Is it really working? And it's important to actually monitor that to make sure that actually happens. So there's a very, very quick overview. Obviously, in the change program we go into this in great depth, and we actually go through each of the six stages in depth. And in fact, on the website, there's a different part of the website for each of the 6 areas, and we go into a lot of detail and give you a lot of information about what are the things that you should be doing at each stage. What are the templates and guides you should be using, but what are the tools and techniques you can use to actually make sure that you actually go through each of these stages in the most effective way. So there's the journey we recommend, and you can see the end-to-end cycle on here. There is a downloadable PDF you can actually get down from ChangePro website, and that gives you the overview. And on the back of that overview, that one pager is I've actually put there 22 pro tips around summarising some of the things I've talked about today and some of the things that I found really useful to be really successful as a project leader. So I hope you found that really, really useful. I know it's been a top level and a really quick run through the project life cycle, but I recommend you go and download the overview, have a look at that, read through it. And if you've got any questions, feel free to get in contact. More than happy to have a debate either on the phone or via email. I am around training quite a bit, so sometimes can be quite difficult to get hold of, but I'm more than happy to support you. If you want to get on board now and really develop your project leader skills, then I certainly recommend you go onto the website www.changepro.co.uk. Go on there, have a look at it. Recommend you log on to the most popular route, if you like, through there is through the hero aspect. Go and have a look at it. If you really like it, get in there, get into the access, and you'll find a whole host of tools, techniques, resources and ideas that you can use and apply straight away. So I wish you well, and let's keep in contact. So I'll see you soon. Bye for now.